Imagine owning a $50 million mansion, a dream home with every luxury you could imagine. Now imagine abandoning it because something inside refuses to let you stay. This isn't fiction. This is the untold story of Taylor Swift's Rhode Island estate and what really happened behind those mansion walls. Today, we're diving deep into one of Hollywood's most whispered about secrets, a story that blends wealth, mystery, and the supernatural. What could make one of the world's biggest stars flee from her own property? The answer might chill you to your core. Long before Taylor Swift purchased this sprawling Rhode Island estate in 2013, the property known as High Watch, or Holiday House, carried a reputation that locals preferred not to discuss. Built in 1930 during the height of the Gilded Age, this oceanfront mansion witnessed nearly a century of secrets. The original owner, Rebekah Harkness, was an eccentric heiress whose life reads like a Gothic novel. Rebekah wasn't just wealthy, she was obsessed with defying death itself. She funded bizarre medical experiments, preserved her beloved cats through taxidermy, and allegedly held seances in the mansion's ballroom. When she died in 1982, rumors swirled that she never truly left. Former caretakers who worked on the property before Swift's purchase reported inexplicable occurrences. Doors that locked themselves from the inside. The sound of music playing from empty rooms. The distinct scent of Rebekah's signature perfume wafting through hallways where no one stood. One groundskeeper quit after encountering what he described as a woman in vintage clothing who vanished when he approached. The mansion sits on 8 acres overlooking the Atlantic Ocean, isolated, imposing, and architecturally magnificent. But isolation can amplify fear, and magnificence can mask malevolence. The property features 11,000 square feet of living space, multiple guest houses, and a coastline that locals once called Widow's Watch for the wives who waited in vain for sailors who never returned. When Taylor Swift bought the mansion for $17.75 million in 2013, a property later valued at over $50 million after renovations, she envisioned creating her perfect summer retreat. At just 23 years old, and at the height of her career, she saw the estate as a place to host her famous 4th of July parties, a creative sanctuary where she could write music surrounded by ocean views. Swift poured millions into renovations, modernizing the estate while preserving its historical charm. She installed state-of-the-art security systems, renovated the pool to face the ocean, and created multiple entertainment spaces. The mansion became famous on social media, with paparazzi photos showing Taylor and her squad of celebrity friends enjoying beach days and elaborate celebrations. For the first 2 summers, everything seemed perfect. Swift hosted legendary parties attended by her closest friends, gatherings that became iconic in pop culture. She wrote songs inspired by the ocean views. She posted photos of sunset dinners and beach bonfires. To the outside world, Taylor had found her paradise. But behind the Instagram-perfect facade, something was wrong. According to sources close to the singer, Taylor began experiencing unexplainable disturbances during her 3rd summer at the property. It started subtly, lights flickering despite new electrical systems, cold spots in rooms that shouldn't be cold, and an overwhelming feeling of being watched. One friend who stayed at the mansion told a close confidant that she woke up at 3 a.m. to find all the furniture in her guest room rearranged. Another reported hearing footsteps in the hallway, only to find it empty when she investigated. Taylor herself allegedly confided to her inner circle that she heard piano music coming from the ballroom, the same room where Rebekah Harkness used to hold her seances, even though no one was playing. The security footage raised even more questions. Multiple cameras captured unexplained shadows moving through rooms, doors opening by themselves, and in one particularly disturbing instance, what appeared to be a figure standing at a window in an empty wing of the house. The turning point came during what should have been a relaxing weekend in late August 2016. Taylor had invited a small group of trusted friends for a quiet getaway, far from the media circus and her demanding schedule. What happened that weekend remains one of the most closely guarded secrets in her inner circle, but pieces of the story have emerged over the years. On the first night, the group gathered in the main living room for dinner. As they laughed and shared stories, every light in the mansion suddenly went dark. This wasn't a simple power outage. The backup generators should have activated immediately, and outside, the street lamps remained lit. For 3 minutes, the mansion sat in complete darkness while everyone inside felt an inexplicable drop in temperature. When the lights returned, one of Taylor's friends was visibly shaken. She claimed that in the darkness she felt someone, or something, touch her shoulder. When she reached up to touch the hand, it was ice cold, and then it was gone. That same night, Taylor's security team was called to investigate a door alarm. One of the mansion's locked doors, which led to Rebekah Harkness's former private chambers, had been opened from the inside. The security footage showed the door handle turning and the door swinging open, but no person was visible. The room beyond was exactly as Taylor had left it, untouched and unused, locked for months. The most disturbing incident occurred at 3:17 a.m. Multiple guests were awakened by the sound of music, a haunting piano melody that seemed to echo through the entire mansion. When they emerged from their rooms, they discovered the sound was coming from the ballroom. Taylor and her head of security went to investigate, and what they found left them speechless. The piano was playing by itself. Not random keys, but a complete melody. An old jazz composition from the 1930s, one that Rebekah Harkness was known to have loved. The piano's lid was open, and as they watched, the keys continued to press down, as if invisible fingers danced across them. When Taylor's security chief approached the instrument, the music stopped abruptly, and every window in the ballroom suddenly flew open despite being locked. But the piano incident wasn't the end. Over the next 48 hours, the activity escalated. Guests reported seeing a woman in vintage clothing walking through the gardens at dawn, a woman who disappeared when called out to. Items in the kitchen would be rearranged overnight. Doors would lock and unlock themselves. And most disturbingly, several people reported the same nightmare. A woman standing at the foot of their bed, watching them sleep, wearing the distinct scent of old perfume. One guest, a longtime friend of Taylor's, captured something on her phone that weekend. A photograph taken in one of the mansion's ornate mirrors. In the reflection, behind the group of smiling friends, stood a figure that wasn't there when the photo was taken. A woman, in 1930s attire, barely visible but undeniably present. The photo was reportedly deleted shortly after, but those who saw it have never forgotten it. Taylor herself had the most personal encounter. According to sources, she was alone in the master bedroom, writing in her journal late one night when she heard her name whispered. Not shouted, not called, whispered, as if someone was standing right behind her. When she turned, no one was there, but she could still feel a presence. The temperature in the room had dropped so dramatically that she could see her breath. That's when Taylor reportedly saw her, Rebekah Harkness, or at least an apparition matching descriptions of the former owner. Standing near the bedroom's ocean-facing windows, a translucent figure in a flowing gown, staring out at the sea. The apparition turned toward Taylor, and witnesses say Taylor described the entity's eyes as hollow but aware, like she was looking through me, not at me. The figure didn't speak, didn't move threateningly, but the message was clear. This was Rebekah's house, and it always would be. Following that terrifying weekend, Taylor Swift did something that most celebrities would never publicly admit. she hired paranormal investigators. Not the television types seeking attention, but serious researchers, historians, parapsychologists, and mediums with legitimate credentials. She needed answers, and she needed them privately. The investigation revealed details about Rebekah Harkness that made the hauntings even more disturbing. Rebekah hadn't just lived in the mansion, she had performed occult rituals there. The ballroom where the piano played itself was the site of multiple seances. The room where guests experienced the most activity had been Rebekah's spiritual chamber, where she attempted to communicate with the dead and, some say, experimented with dark practices meant to extend her own life. The investigators discovered that Rebekah had been obsessed with immortality. She spent millions on experimental treatments and allegedly engaged with practitioners of dark arts. Some historical records suggest she believed that by binding her spirit to the house through rituals, she could continue to exist after death. Whether she succeeded or not remains a matter of belief, but the manifestations suggested that something of Rebekah remained. Mediums who entered the property reported an overwhelming presence, not malevolent in the traditional sense, but possessive. Rebekah's spirit, they claimed, viewed anyone living in her mansion as an intruder. She had poured so much of her identity and energy into the estate that she couldn't separate herself from it, even in death. The investigators documented dozens of paranormal events during their time at the mansion. Electronic voice phenomena captured what sounded like a woman saying, "My house," repeatedly. Thermal cameras recorded cold spots that moved intelligently through rooms, as if avoiding the living. And in one session, a medium claimed to make direct contact with Rebekah, who allegedly communicated that she would never leave and that the mansion belonged to her for eternity. But perhaps the most chilling discovery came from the mansion's history. Researchers found that nearly every owner after Rebekah had either sold the property quickly or experienced unusual circumstances. One owner reported chronic insomnia and depression that lifted immediately after moving out. Another abandoned the mansion mid-renovation, citing hostile working conditions that contractors refused to elaborate on. The pattern was clear. Rebekah didn't want anyone calling her house home. Taylor faced an impossible decision. She could try to coexist with the paranormal activity, attempt an exorcism or cleansing, which mediums warned might anger the spirit further, or she could leave. For someone who had invested not just millions of dollars but emotional energy into creating her dream retreat, the choice was devastating. By late 2016, Taylor Swift had made her decision. While she never publicly abandoned the property, doing so would invite the very media scrutiny and tabloid stories she wanted to avoid. Her visits became increasingly rare. The famous 4th of July parties stopped. The social media posts from the mansion disappeared. Taylor quietly shifted her summer plans to other properties. Industry insiders noticed the change. Where Taylor had once spoken enthusiastically about her Rhode Island retreat, she became evasive when asked about it. She maintained the property, kept a security staff, and continued paying for its upkeep. But she stopped living there. The mansion that was supposed to be her summer sanctuary had become a $50 million reminder of an experience she wanted to forget. In her 2020 albums Folklore and Evermore, eagle-eyed fans noticed something fascinating. Taylor included a song called "The Last Great American Dynasty," which told the story of Rebekah Harkness. The lyrics described Rebekah's eccentric life, her mansion, and even referenced Taylor's own purchase of the property. But the song had an eerie quality. It wasn't just historical storytelling. Lines like, "I had a marvelous time ruining everything," seemed to blur the boundary between Taylor and Rebekah, as if the two were somehow connected. Was the song Taylor's way of processing her experiences? Some fans theorize that Taylor wrote it as a form of peace offering to Rebekah's spirit, acknowledging her story humanizing her, and perhaps hoping it would bring resolution. Others see it as Taylor's attempt to reclaim the narrative, to turn a terrifying experience into art. The mansion's current status is peculiar. It's maintained immaculately, as if someone might arrive at any moment, but Taylor spends minimal time there. She's been photographed entering the property occasionally, usually for brief visits during daylight hours, never staying overnight. The famous guest houses remain furnished but empty. The pool sits pristine but unused. It's a ghost house in more ways than one, haunted not just by spirits, but by the dreams of what it was supposed to be. Local residents in Rhode Island have their own stories about the property. Some report seeing lights moving through the mansion late at night when no one should be there. Others claim to hear music drifting from the property on quiet summer evenings, that same haunting piano melody from the 1930s. A few brave souls who've walked near the property's gates swear they've seen a figure standing at the upstairs windows, watching the ocean, waiting for something or someone. The story of Taylor Swift's haunted mansion raises profound questions about wealth, ownership, and the supernatural. What does it mean to truly own property when something, or someone, refuses to recognize that ownership? Can money and fame protect you from forces that exist beyond our understanding? And what happens when the dream home becomes a nightmare? For Taylor Swift, a woman who has achieved almost everything one could aspire to, wealth, fame, creative success, and global influence, this mansion represents something rare in her life, a defeat. Not a failure of talent or effort, but an encounter with something she couldn't control, couldn't negotiate with, and ultimately couldn't overcome. In a life defined by unprecedented success, the Rhode Island mansion stands as a reminder that some things remain beyond even the most powerful person's reach. The broader implications of this story resonate with anyone who has ever felt unwelcome in a space, sensed a presence they couldn't explain, or experienced events that logic couldn't rationalize. Paranormal experiences don't discriminate based on wealth or fame. If anything, properties with deep histories and strong previous owners might be more susceptible to such phenomena, regardless of who currently holds the deed. Rebekah Harkness, in life and apparently in death, was a woman who refused to be ignored or displaced. Her eccentricity, her occult interests, and her determination to make her mark on the world created an energy that seems to persist decades after her physical death. Whether you believe in ghosts or not, the pattern of disturbances at the mansion is difficult to dismiss entirely. What's most intriguing is that Taylor has never publicly confirmed or denied the paranormal experiences. She's maintained a dignified silence, allowing speculation to swirl while protecting her privacy and perhaps avoiding ridicule from skeptics. This silence speaks volumes. Someone so open about other aspects of her life, choosing to remain completely quiet about why she abandoned her dream summer home. The mansion stands today as a modern Gothic tale, a reminder that history leaves imprints, that the past isn't always past, and that sometimes no amount of money can buy peace. For Taylor Swift, the experience likely taught her that home isn't about the grandest building or the most expensive property. It's about feeling safe, feeling welcome, and feeling at peace. As for Rebekah Harkness, perhaps she finally got what she wanted: eternal residency in the mansion she loved so much that she refused to leave, even after death. Her legacy, once nearly forgotten, has been revived through Taylor's song and this enduring mystery. In a strange way, both women are now forever linked to that property overlooking the Atlantic, one who cannot leave and one who cannot return. The next time you drive past a grand, empty mansion, or hear stories about properties that won't stay sold, remember Taylor Swift's Rhode Island estate. Remember that some houses carry stories too powerful to renovate away, histories too embedded to redecorate, and presences too determined to ever truly evict. Sometimes, the real ghosts aren't the spirits themselves. They're the dreams we leave behind when we walk away from places that won't let us stay.